this is the catch-22, guys. This is what I found out. It's like as you become more successful as a lifter, you gain more notoriety, the hunger wanes. Okay. And I couldn't get the intensity and hunger and aggression that I had in the early years when I was unknown and I was coming up and people would talk shit to me online. And once it's all success and like people complimenting you and you've kind of made it, the hunger as much isn't there. It's like it's gone and you're not going to get it back. And that was a big component of it as well. And life, like you start having a serious girlfriend and a wife, and then you start getting into actually like life. Because when I was in my peak lifting years, that was life. Life was lifting. There wasn't anything else. I was not balanced. I did not have success necessarily outside of the gym. Like my life was in disarray. But once I like finally got out of that shell and was like, okay, I need to be a grown up now, it was hard to have that same aggression and seriousness.
Yeah, being elite at anything is does generally not go hand in hand with having a well-balanced life. I feel like that's a pretty common truism. And I experienced very much the same thing. In fact, there's this thing in strongman. I don't know how much it applies to some of the higher guys. I've seen it in the open class. I know guys that have kind of broken through and then faded away. But for a long time, weight class, they would call it curse of the middleweight pro card, because you get these insane 105 kilogram guys that were like up and coming. They were supposed to be the next big thing, and they'd get their pro card and then they just never compete again. Because once you have that thing that says like, okay, you've made it, you're legitimized, you've achieved what you set out to do. Now you're on the top of the mountain. What is the thing that keeps you pushing farther? You're like, I'm already on top of the mountain. Like I'm already known as that guy. I already have that feather in my cap. Why keep pushing? Why keep killing myself? And there very much is that antagonistic pressure that comes from being unknown, from having a fucking chip on your shoulder, from working through all of your stuff. And then when you're surrounded with people patting you on the head, telling you how good you are, that, oh my God, that takes the wind out of the sails. It's one of the things that I struggle with now, because I'm in a spot in my life I do not deserve to be in. I have to stop and express gratitude every day. I mean, move the house I have, my wife, the life I live, the amount of comfort I have, the amount of access to amenities I have. Like I live a very fucking cushion life. It is really, really difficult to infuse the type of work ethic or to remind yourself to keep your foot on the gas when everything is so easy. And I think that applies to training and to life. It's like if I wanted to write some magnum opus, if I wanted to like make some great piece of art or some work that I was going to hang my hat off, I swear to God, I'd have to get divorced. I'd have to like live in a shack, somewhere in the middle of nowhere and live off of top ramen and sleep on the concrete floor to get myself in a state where I could push those things out. Because it feels like, and maybe that's a personality thing that some people, maybe that are wired a little bit like us, share. But I swear to God, like those big meteoric rises, those big jumps you make, they're so much easier when you have nothing and you're fighting against everything. Fire inside you. But yeah, that gets stolen away pretty quick.
You nailed it, because it seems like the more stable and comfortable almost, which is a bad word, but my life gets, the harder it is to train with that same intensity. It's just not there, because it's like, okay, I'm actually a grown-up now. I'm 32 almost, and I have a kid and I have a wife and I have bills to pay and I have responsibilities and I have a lot of work to do every day. And it's like lifting, I can't train for 4 hours anymore. I can't do things completely in almost a selfish manner. So it's that tough balance, which is why maybe, in your 20s is the time to kind of go for that kind of stuff. And then you got to kind of mellow out. And I feel like it's just being responsible. It's like, I can't keep blasting gear and going for records and spending 4 hours training and neglect my family and might kill my health and all this kind of stuff. It's like I have to do that responsibly. Like I wouldn't be a good husband, good father, good person if I was like, all right, I'm going to keep competing and trying to go for 2,200 and take all the trend and my life's in disarray again. It's like, you can't do that anymore. You got to grow up at some point. So that's almost where I'm at now, and I'm at peace with it.
Oh, you should be. I think that's the enlightened way to approach it. And I think that's an important message in the era of social media where everybody is exposed to the biggest performers of all time in their feed, and they just scroll through. And guys, I'm super proud to have Boostcamp as a primary sponsor of this channel. Not only is Boostcamp the easiest and most intuitive way to track your training and your progress, not only is it absolutely free to use, not only does it feature an immense library of some of your favorite programs, but it features an exclusive library of programs you will not find anywhere else. In fact, there's so much content there. I'm actually doing a series specifically dedicated to the programs that you will only find on Boostcamp. Stop what you're doing right now, click the link below, download Boostcamp. And guys, as I film this channel just hit 100,000 subs like 5 minutes ago, and that number would not have been possible without the support of sponsors like Boostcamp. So I want to thank you, the viewer, for your support, and I want to thank Boostcamp for their support. And it's 2,000 pound totals don't mean anything. You don't have a 2,000 pound total. It's like, people ask me what I lift. I have to like shy away from it because I'm going to give myself away. They're going to be like, why do you have an opinion? You don't have a 550 bench. You don't have an 800 pull. And everybody's standards are so skewed. And I think that can be really toxic on the individual level, because the people that are setting standards for themselves, they do have this expectation where, well, if you got to do it, you got to do it to the nth degree, where out of millions and millions of people lifting, only a few can become the best. In fact, only dozens can become really, really, really good. For everybody else, there has to be a purpose for you that you are aware of. And it goes back to like, okay, there's still a point to doing this, even if you're not going to be a world record holder, even if you're not going to, go sweep nationals, because virtually all of you will not do that. So what do you take out of it, and how do you balance out with the rest of your life? It's so different than the super high performers that are like the titans of industry, CEOs of Forbes 500 companies, the people that for as much as it's easy to like throw shade at billionaires or whatever, generally, when you look at the people that are in those positions, you're talking about life stress being insane. You're talking about people that sleep 4 or 5 hours a night. You're talking about people that live and breathe, all the other shit you could talk about, the social commentary, political commentary. I'm not even saying anything about that. It's just, to live that type of life, you have to live that. You can't have a family. You can't be around your kids. You can't be a good dad. If your entire life is for that peak pinnacle of excellence, then you have to sacrifice everything else. And that's the obvious trade-off. You can't show me somebody who's worth, a certain degree of wealth, hundreds of millions of dollars, who runs these industries, who has a well-balanced life. It doesn't exist. It's the same thing with people that rev the engine nonstop in pop culture, whether they're actors or musicians. And same thing with athletes that are dying. Man, did you watch the Michael Jordan documentary? Did you see, was it The Last Dance on Netflix?
I never watched it. I know about it. I never saw it.
I'm not a basketball fan at all. I'm generally not a sports fan. But the psychological insight into what goes into being the greatest, even if you have the talent, even if you were born, light from heaven shined on you when you were born, saying you're going to be one of the best basketball players ever do it. The mindset, way this human being lived his life and prioritized winning over everything else, you don't get that level without this huge cost. So going back to what you were saying, I think you have a very mature, enlightened message that I think people need to hear. It's like, you can do this in a way that your kids are going to see, like, oh, daddy trains, daddy's strong. Your kids don't care if you have a 2,200 or the eulogy isn't going to be like, oh, right before he died, he hit that 10-pound PR that really like just set him apart. Nobody gives a shit. But if you show your kids and everybody around you, not just your kids, but your social network that you influence, what it's like to have a steady workman-like life where you incorporate really important things to kind of have this holistic greatness. It's not that you're the best at any one thing, but it's that generally you have a well-rounded life, that you stayed the course and you chipped away and you spread the message of hard, consistent work. I mean, I think that's like the best thing that you can do. And I don't think that message gets spread around enough.
Yeah. I don't think people realize either, like you were saying, that the cost it takes to be in certain positions, because there's people with like a lot more money or better, things than I have. But I'm like, do I want to do all the things they do and deal with all that stress and travel as much as they have to for business or whatever? I'm like, not really. I wouldn't want to deal with that. I have a pretty good life as it is. It's not too stressful. And you got to weigh these costs. So even, for everything, there's a cost benefit analysis. You got to say that for anything. anything in life. And I think I'm seeing that more and more. And especially the thing where it's like, we got to appreciate what we have in the present. And we can't always just be looking towards the future, because that's something I've struggled with so much, where I would have a big goal, say, let's a 950-pound deadlift, and I never got there. But let's say that was the goal. Well, I would almost like try to fast forward through all that time training up to it to try to get to that point. And then you just watched all that time go by, where instead of really trying to take it in as like life is a continuous journey, you're never going to get this day back. You're never going to get the past back. You got to acknowledge the present every day. Literally make a note every day to acknowledge the present day, the present moment, what you're going to do today. Appreciate the little things. And that's what's going to make you happier in the long run.
When you think about the biggest numbers you've ever hit, it's like for every one of those memories, you have hundreds of memories of the training sessions, of the journey, right? Of the people you knew, of the rivalries you had. And that creates the depth of that time in your life. And I think that's absolutely true, to remind yourself to be aware and be present, and to keep the important things in mind. And it's funny because I'm known as a choke artist. I'm a massive choke artist. So the biggest associate with making a mistake or shitting the bed or having something go wrong. But I still have such love for what I do, because I love to train. I love to track the progress. I love to see, it's like, okay, a contest didn't go well, but I know what I did from point A to point B. I know how to get, how to get better. And I actually love the feeling of stressing myself. I love the feeling of training. It makes the rest of my life go better. I have an outlet for anxiety and aggression, and it all works really well. But no, I think that's a huge point. And I would say that if anybody can start their day with a basic amount of gratitude for what they do have, knowing that no matter how many people stand above you, there's always a lot of people below you that you can look down to and say, I have it better than so-and-so. It's like, I have earth under my feet. I have air in my lungs. I have a brain, 2 arms and 2 legs, and I have the ability to go out and do that people have. You can find a mindset that I think is more conducive to being not just happy, but actually productive, without having all the baggage that goes along with hyper productivity, like we're talking about. If I said it before, if I had to write a book about like anything self-help, it would be reminding people that to really be great at something, it's not doing what you see on social media. It's not doing what you see in pop culture. If you take your immediate sphere of people, it's like, how many people do you talk to on a day-to-day basis? Like a few dozen? I talk to like 3. It's like my dogs, my wife, and the person who checks me out at the HEB. But your immediate sphere of influence, it doesn't take a lot to be the strong guy, right? I mean, if you bench press 275 in any group you go to, you're probably one of the strong guys. It doesn't take a lot to be the history buff, or it doesn't take a lot to be the person that knows how to fix shit. Out of your immediate sphere of influence, anybody can be great, in the sense that people know you apart and give you that purpose and direction. And it generally just requires fostering a skill the way you would foster anything else, and taking it seriously and enjoying it, and not killing yourself. So yeah, when I do, and this kind of circles all the way back to the natty debate. It's like when you're trying to influence people to not pump a bunch of hormones into their body because they want to look like their favorite IG lifter. It's like, you have to ask yourself every time, why am I doing this? What do I want out of this? Do I want to post another squat video on Instagram? Like just another thing to scroll past that's meaningful to you, but nobody else? Or do you want to be able to impact people around you? And the barrier for doing that is not only more fulfilling, that action is more fulfilling, but the barrier is much, much lower.
That makes a lot of sense. It's just the thought of, what do you want to focus on? What do you want to spend your time and energy on? All that sort of thing.